All right, good evening, council. I'd like to call our regular council meeting for September 8th, 2025 to order and welcome everyone on the line as well. And we're going to start our meeting tonight with a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of the agendas. So we'll start with that moment of reflection now. All right. On to the approval of the agendas. We have a consent agenda. Is anyone wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? Otherwise, a motion to approve as presented. Councillor Fox makes a motion to approve the consent agenda. If there's no further discussion, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And a regular meeting agenda. I don't believe there were any edits besides the presenter on the one item, but otherwise we're good to go. So a motion to approve the agenda is presented. Councillor Wolstenholme makes that motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we'll start with some comments for the good of council. Does anyone have something they wish to share with the whole council? Councillor Henniger.
There is a survey out right now for, is it still open, Danny? Yeah, for the town patios that we had. I wouldn't say town patios, patios from businesses down on Main Street. So that's available online and just getting some feedback of how you thought that went. And it's really important to give that feedback to the town of Fort Macleod. And then we also have a really fun event this Thursday. It's the biggest, best night on Main Street other than the Santa Claus Parade. Taste of Fort Macleod is on Thursday, and so Main Street will be closed from noon on Thursday till the event is done.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. Any other comments for the good of council? I did want to highlight an MPC decision a couple weeks back on the big development application and approval. I know it was reported that it was 13,000 square feet in the newspaper, but it's actually 13,000 square meters, which is approximately, I think, 160,000 square feet. So, very large development that's proposed on the land south of town. As soon as everything moves ahead with, I believe the land sale is the next topic for discussion. So that's big news. That's very good. Looks very good too. So that was good to see. Any other comments for the good of council? Any updates on McLeod Landing perhaps? Or trenches filled?
Are all of the trenches filled?
We're getting close.
Close. Mostly. They're going to be wrapping up this week. Yeah, so phase 1 will be wrapping up this week. Houses are going up. It looks beautiful. Yeah, our multi-unit development, one of the lots that sold there, that'll start soon. They're finalizing that sale. They're just waiting on some funding stuff, and so that's going along smoothly as well. So those 35 units will be started relatively soon. And then phase 2, which is that second street, that is mostly done. Just so everyone's aware, there is some shallow utility stuff that was delayed because that's quite a coordinating effort between all of the ATCO, Fortis, and all of the other providers. That's not going to be complete until winter.
Early winter.
Yeah, we're pushing hard, but it's going to be a minute. So all of the purchasers of those lots know, but yeah, not exactly how we wanted it to turn out because we were hoping they could just get it all done at once, but there are engineering delays.
Yeah, the light standards are up, so hopefully the lights are on soon too, right? So that'll be nice. Yeah, very good. Any other comments for the good of council? Seeing none, we will move on to our delegations, and we have our Sergeant Christian Lafleur, local commander here tonight, presenting the quarterly report on behalf of the RCMP. So we would like to welcome you to council tonight, and looking forward to the updates you have for us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Would you like me to read the letter or can we?
No, unless there's highlights, but I think we've read through it. It's in the package as well. I think that's fine. If there's highlights you want to highlight, that's good. Otherwise, we can go through some of the other
The
material.
salient point. Okay, so the first priority, of course, was the crime reduction. All the quarterly goals have been met and surpassed. The offenders management is depending obviously on the courts and the probation releasing offenders with enforceable conditions. This past quarter, initially we were monitoring 3 of these individuals. However, 2 of them are now residing outside of Fort McLeod jurisdiction. We've instituted a zero policy tolerance, if you want, for a lot of them. If we see them doing anything that's chargeable, ticketable, or anything actionable, we do it. A lot of them have now decided to move somewhere else for the time being. 2 warrant roundups operations were conducted, and then the weekly press release by myself or my corporal continues to highlight education as well as emerging crime trends. We've seen in the last few months, if you want, a spike in calls for service around the 9th Street area, which we're continuing to obviously monitor and being more proactive, but it seems to be the odd spot these days for our calls for service. I'm also, or I should say my team and I are working with the Crown right now on some of the other offenders. There was a break in property crime for the last couple of months. We were successful in getting most of the ringleaders held in custody, awaiting trials and everything. They've now since been released. So we're going to monitor them as well. But some of the actions were taken has resulted in 2 of them indicating to us again that they'd like to move away temporarily as long as they're under conditions. Reason being is we are doing nightly checks on them at all times of night as we're allowed to do. That obviously puts a crank into their criminal activity, so they'd like to go somewhere else where maybe they're not so proactive. Priority number 2 was the traffic safety, motor vehicle, roads, and so on. Again, we've met and surpassed the goals that we've set for the quarter. The twice monthly overtime shifts that I'm putting on for traffic enforcement only has been extremely successful. We've gotten a lot of impaired drivers, either by alcohol or by drugs, as well as a lot of suspended drivers, no insurance, and so on and so forth. Again, the focus is to be visibility, which is the number 1 priority for the town, as well as traffic enforcement, which is also something that most residents are coming to us to complain, speeders and everything. The cost for those overtime shifts is recouped. I set a goal for the handpicked persons that I picked to go and do those shifts. And for example, I'm just going to pick numbers. If the overtime for that person working, we'll say, is $1,000, I'm setting a goal of $2,000 to $3,000 in ticket revenues to be met. Keep it in mind that half those revenues are coming back to the town or to the county, depending where the tickets are written. So it pays for itself, but it also increases the goals. So in this last quarter, we issued 160 tickets, as well as 17 warnings. 2 large check stop operations were conducted, and usually we'll pair up with surrounding detachments, the sheriffs, in a lot of cases, the county's peace officers. Priority number 3 was police community relations, police visibility. Again, tying back to the traffic enforcement, I make sure that my guys are out more throughout the shift so that I like to call them the Christmas light, but I guess most people call them the police lights, are visible. That deters a lot of people from committing questionable activities. So again, all the goals have been met, surpassed, or well on their way to be surpassed for the year. Keep it in mind that yes.
Traffic enforcement, are they locals or are they people traveling through generally? Do you know?
A little bit of both. Like we're not targeting anybody specifically. Impaired driving, it doesn't matter where they're from. We don't want them off the road. Uh, we tend to give warnings to local people versus traveling through. But obviously, things like no insurance and stuff like that, it doesn't matter if you're local or not. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I was just curious, not so much on that insurance and whatever, just the speeding. If it's out of towners that are speeding more likely than residents.
50-50, depending on zone. The obvious zones obviously are the two one-ways, right? That's where people, although we're getting a lot of complaint for 10th Street and 9th Street. So we've sped up or we've increased our visibility there as well to try to deter that. Speeding, yes. One thing that came out, and again, it's not in this quarter, I'm reporting on with the current quarter. We approached the COP, like the Citizen Patrols, to see if they'd be interested in purchasing not a billboard sign, but it's the speed indicator, like you see in Clairezone, and put that through several locations as they move it in an effort to deter people from speeding. Maybe that's something the town would be interested as well. I'm not sure, but
So I believe the town has two currently, right, in and around town.
Yep.
You're thinking more would be beneficial, is what you're saying.
maybe on the one ways would be more beneficial if you want, and one probably on 10th Street.
Yeah, I've seen them on Fifth Avenue, the one ways. We've seen them. Yeah, I just noticed this past weekend driving through Nanton, they actually changed the speed limit southbound lanes to 30. I was like, yikes! I don't know how they get away with that. That's hard. So, yeah, that's just new. I wouldn't propose to do that at all. That's a pretty drastic measure, especially being a primary highway, right? But more speed indicators, I don't know. That's something we can look into. I think it would be more the town than citizens on patrol that would do something like that. Yeah. Okay.
There's a target of 2 town halls per year. I haven't held the one yet. I'm going to do that either later on this month or into the next quarter so we can reassess the priorities and adjust the numbers. However, I felt that it was too early before this. We've participated in several community events. We've given school presentation on impaired driving and road safety and conducted 27 foot patrols in which we've interacted with as many people as we could to again gauge resident satisfaction and see what their concerns are at the same time. The weekly press release by myself and my corporal continues to highlight police activities and education, emerging crime trends. So that's been successful, if you want. Stepping out of the priorities for a second, we've had some, I don't want to say homeless people, but people with no ties to Fort Macleod coming in, pitching tents in some areas in town. We were able to convince all of them but one to, we'd give them a ride to Lethbridge, to shelter there where services would be available to them. However, one remains in town. We've had a couple calls from that individual as well by the ice cream shop in between the museum. Unfortunately, if they refuse to leave, we don't have that many recourses. I'm not sure if the town has something they could pass, like a bylaw or something that would be enforceable. But for us, there's no, if they don't do anything criminal, there's nothing we can do. They have a right to be wherever. So,
I think we would have something, but we'd have to double check whether it's loitering. I think we do have something for,
Yeah, we definitely have some language about loitering. I'd have to check the community standards one to see what we have about, I mean, there's certain curfews too on certain properties, like you can't be sleeping through any of our parks or anything like that, so.
right. And would you say they're local to the town?
no ties to Fort McLeod. For some reason lately, Fort McLeod seems to be attracting a lot of people from everywhere with no ties
Okay.
to the town.
Yeah, one way it's, you wonder what's the attraction. I know we're a nice town and everything.
It's a lovely town.
Yeah. Well, if you have any feedback on what you're seeing or hearing, then definitely let us know too.
They, again, not to harp on 9th Street, but it seems to be attracting a lot of people that are letting other people stay with them for a certain period of time, then kick them out, and these people have nowhere to go.
Sure.
So I think that's what we're seeing as well. Because most of the people we talk to, they'll name somebody as a friend, or even we've had people say, no, I just stop in, I like it, I'm staying.
Okay. I know the current concerns have been brought up regarding 9th Street, and I think our last action was to connect with the owners of some of the properties to have some discussions with them regarding what they're doing or seeing or what's going on. Councillor Hanniger?
Would it be appropriate to say that those individuals who are seeing, again, transient activities happening in and around 9th Street or other areas to utilize SCAN? I do know that SCAN has been in our community. There's an anonymous tip under the SCAN website that you can put a property's address if there's things happening. Would that be recommended by the RCMP to follow that route for if you don't want to call the line or something after hours? Would that be the route that people could take?
Well, SCAN typically would look more at drug houses and stuff like that. So, except for a few, I mean, we are conducting a couple of investigations into drug trafficking at the moment, but not to the scale that SCAN will look at. We've engaged them in the past or worked with them. Unfortunately, the way that they work and the way we work, we're not allowed to give them work, if that makes sense. It has to be people from the public phoning it in, and then they'll call us we can discuss things from there, but we can't initiate anything with them. But they've been in town and they've been working with us on a couple of issues, if you want.
Very good. Yeah, anything else on your report that you would like to highlight?
None is common, but for the rest of my presentation, so currently I have 7 established positions for police officers. I currently have 8 members. We managed to have an extra position. However, this is being offsetted with one of my members that's going to be on special leave for probably the next year and a half. So we're basically at full strength if you take that, because she's not going to be working. So there's no art vacancy at this time. Same with the established position for my admin workers. Throughout the summer, I had success in securing a student to come and work for us from Brockett, so we kind of tied in the reconciliation as well as employing somebody that would be interested in that type of work later. And unfortunately, from what I was told, I was lucky to get that, and that won't happen again because now we're in financial restraints for the foreseeable future. So, but for the summer, we had a summer student that worked out quite nicely. And that's all I had, unless you guys want to go through the statistics.
Well, I think through your report, you already reported on some of the stats. I went through them a little bit. Is there any that you would say were the most alarming based on some of the increased activity you're seeing?
No, they were, I mean, crime is pretty well cyclical depending on who's in and who's out at the
Right.
time, right, in custody. We're seeing the normal amount of, and I hate to say it, I mean, because it's not normal, but we're seeing the average amount of sexual assault. Where a lot of the sex assault that you're going to see reported here, in a lot of cases, are historical, dating as far back sometimes 30 years, that we have to look into. Domestic violence continues to be every week, several occurrences every week. There's not much that we can do to prevent that, unfortunately. The rest, like I said, the property crime, ever since they repealed the act that was allowing us to track copper wires, we've seen an increase in that drastically. It's one thing for us to know who's doing it, unfortunately, and how we can prove it, because they tend to be hard to, I'll see a bunch of copper, but how do I tie it to that place? We're working on trying to find ways, but it's a little difficult sometimes. Vehicle, for some reason, has gone down a little bit. We ran this program that was called Lock It or Lose It in this quarter that I'm going to be reporting later. That seemed to have had some success as well, so maybe that prevented the vehicle theft. Other than that, it's all pretty well. We're getting a lot of suspicious people, but again, that's what I was talking about earlier, with people with no ties to community and people calling on them.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any other thoughts, questions from council? See you, Burdette. Did you have any comments on the discussion with landowners, building owners?
No, we haven't connected. Sent an email, but we haven't connected yet.
Any other comments for detachment commander? If not, we want to thank you and your team, and definitely stay in touch. If you have any other feedback before our next quarterly report, don't be afraid to reach out. Very good, thank you. Wish your team well as also. Yeah, thank you. Going on then to new business for tonight, we have a road closure bylaw, and I believe Brennan is going to speak on behalf of Gavin on this one.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this one, the recommendation is that council give first reading to bylaw 2015 to close the road to public travel and creating a title to and disposing of the following described highways subject to rights of access granted by other legislation. So this is 21st Street, and Miranda, if you can bring up that map. So 21st Street, Plan 1582 HB. All that portion of the road on Plan 3707L forming part of the plan, and all that portion of road on Plan 8790 GR forming part of the plan. And this would be advertised to the public for a public hearing to be held on September 22nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. And if you do look at the map, so this is part of what we're working towards as far as getting the property lines and everything organized on Linden Road and in that area, which my understanding is has been in process for quite some time. So we actually had this in the works, I think it was 2 years ago, and so we've gotten the surveying and everything done. So now we're presenting it new, but because it's been so long, we're starting out with a new bylaw.
Very good. Anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? So that's first reading and advertised for a public hearing. Councillor Henniger makes the motion. Any questions for administration? Councillor Monteith.
So these maps you send me, I have trouble reading them, but it looks to me like we're just talking about an extension of what Linden Road is? Like right along Linden Road, is that correct?
Yes, so it is the property line there. So there had been some adjustments to the property lines and where the fences were. So we did go down with the surveyors. We made sure that we were leaving enough room for the utilities and those kinds of things, and then adjusting those lines.
So is this before the golf course or after the golf course?
It's right along the full length of Daisy May Campground, really. It's on the north side of the road, so it's from the
Yeah.
one residence, which has a number 1 on it, all the way past to the other side of Daisy May.
Yeah, and there is more work to be done. So there is that road that goes down. So this is all east of the golf course and its entrance.
So that's where you're doing some work a couple weeks ago. Is that correct? Right in front of Daisy May, they were digging and doing whatever.
How about now? Oh, now it's here. So there was work down there. The work that included this is just the surveying. We did connect some water lines and things like that a little while ago, but that was unrelated. We were just connecting water line.
Looks like a bit of a maze, this one. I don't know how this one was ever put together. That's crazy. So motions on the floor. Any other questions, concerns, discussion? Otherwise, I'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 2, which is bylaw 2016. It's a new bylaw for a land use bylaw rezone. And our Director of Ops as well would like to speak to this one.
Thank you. So this one, the recommendation is that council give first reading to bylaw 2016 to amend bylaw number 2000, being the municipal land use bylaw. The purpose of bylaw number 216 is to redesignate lands legally described as portion of lot 1, block 2, plan 0513590 from agriculture residential transitional to industrial general, and schedule a public hearing to be held as well on September 26, 2025 at 7 p.m. And if you look at the map here, again, just to give perspective, that's down in the southeast corner of McLeod, down in that industrial section.
Very good. Anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Fox makes the motion for first reading and to advertise for a public hearing. Any other questions or discussion for administration on this one? Councillor Monteith?
We own that land.
Yes, this is all town only.
So what's the plan there? Lots or one big lot or?
Yes, there is a subdivision plan, and we had shared, it was quite a while back now, probably early spring, and I can share that again out with council. So there's actually 10 lots. There's the 5 that we had talked about, and then there's another 5 shallow that just take us to the next road allowance. And so, yeah, so right now, when we had previously talked about it with council, we were a little more ambitious to get things rolling, but it was dependent on some sales and interest. Those sales and interest didn't materialize, but we thought we'll continue to proceed because the subdivision takes the longest time anyway. So rezone subdivision, and then we can revisit it once they're further along in the process and see where we go from there. We do have people that are interested in land, just whether or not, when it comes to all of the inputs that and the costs that the town puts in to develop it, it gets a little expensive. And so we'll see. But it's the natural place to develop for industrial. It fits into it's not technically an area structure plan, but the potential site map that ORSCAD developed, and it will be part of the new area structure plan. So.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Monteith? Very good. Any further discussion or questions? So the motion is for first reading and to advertise for a public hearing on September 22nd. If there's no further questions, we'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving along to bylaw 2014, a Union Cemetery bylaw amendment. And Anthony Burdette will speak to this one.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So before you have bylaw 2014, which is an amendment. Now, this is, I guess, in essence, this is to add rates to our bylaw to account for the new, I forgot the columbarium for the new niches. We just bought a new columbarium because we were running full on our old columbarium. And so we needed to add the price of those columbarium niches to this. And it also adds a price, a fee for those who advise the town with limited amount of time, because we have a time period of 2 business days. It's 2, right? But anyway, if they contact us after that time period, we charge them an extra fee because it is usually more challenging. It usually does add overtime, staff, and things like that, because it can be a quick turnaround, because it usually happens on a weekend as well. So the recommendation this evening is that bylaw 2014, being a bylaw of the town of Fort Macleod in province of Alberta for the purposes of amending the Union Cemetery bylaw 1985, is hereby given first reading, and then all 3 readings this evening. So that it's, because there's not really an open, no need for a public hearing on this bylaw. The details of the bylaw can be found on the 3rd page of the section. If you have any questions or, comments, I'm here to answer them.
Very good, thank you very much. Anyone willing to make a motion for first reading of bylaw 2014? Councillor Fox makes the motion for first reading. Any questions for administration, further discussion, debate? I think it's pretty straightforward and simple. Yes, CEO Burdette?
And I think it does say it in here, but as far as the pricing goes, we price the niches so that we can recover the cost of the columbarium, and they're very comparable to other communities' prices as well.
Okay, motion is on the floor. If there's no further discussion or debate, we'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Anyone prepared to make a motion for second reading of bylaw 2014? Councillor Fox makes the motion. Any further discussion on second reading of bylaw 2014? If there is none, we'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Requesting from council a motion to proceed to third reading of bylaw 2014, with which we need unanimous consent. Anyone prepared to make that motion? Councillor Fox makes the motion. Call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Anyone prepared to make a motion for a third reading of 2014? Councillor Henniger makes a motion for third reading of bylaw 2014. We'll call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried, and bylaw 2014 has been passed. Moving on to our last item for tonight, we have a proclamation, and our Director of Operations, would you like to speak to this one?
Yes, thank you. So this is the Proclamation Alberta Development Officers Week 2025. So the recommendation is that council proclaims the week of September 23rd to September 26th, 2025 to be designated as Alberta Development Officers Week in the town of Fort Macleod. Just a little bit of details. So the development officer is a current planning and development specialist with knowledge in current legislation, policy and bylaws, systems and technical requirements for physical development within the community in the province of Alberta. A development officer enforces and administers land use regulations and policies on behalf of a municipality and is designated to the position of development authority by the municipality. And I read through that, and if I could, I'd just like to talk a little bit about our development officer. So So Kelly, I've been working with her quite a bit, and I know I'm new here, but I've found that the position is to be essentially a mediator between the land use bylaw and oftentimes the individuals that can have very different needs and desires. I've found her to be highly detail oriented, organized, and procedurally driven. There's a lot of detail in the land use bylaw that I'm working through. I can't say that I've read through everything. And she works very hard to ensure a consistent process and future considerations. And I think the one thing that I've noticed is that oftentimes when dealing with people or owners and they want to move ahead right now on different projects, it can be really hard to be thinking about the future and what effects that have on other people and other situations. And I think she handles that very well. So Kelly is a professional, and she's diligent in trying to solve issues, with also helping to follow the process. And like I said, working kind of in the middle of residents and administration and council and planners and surveyors and a lot of different government organizations. And so I think that there's some really good work that happens in the town of Fort Macleod. I think that there's a good balance between trying to find solutions for people as well as making sure that we're following those bylaws and trying to enforce those things that help us go into the future. So again, the recommendation is to have that week of September 23rd to September 26th to be designated as Alberta Development Officers Week in the town of Fort Macleod.
Very nicely said. Thank you very much. That was very good. And I would concur that our development officer has, how long did you say again that she's been here? That's gotta be 8, 12? Oh, yeah. It's been here a long time, and I definitely have appreciated her support. Yeah, yeah. This is a trick question, right? Well, thank you either way, Kelly, if you're listening. We appreciate what you do and look forward to this declaration. So is anyone prepared to make a motion as per the recommendation? Councillor Wolstenholme makes that motion. If there is no other discussion or comments, unless someone else has any comments they would like to share. Otherwise, we'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. And that concludes our public portion of the meeting, or our meeting for today. Thank you very much.